Hey, today's video we're going to talk about target impression share bidding strategy on Google Ads. And basically bidding strategy being how you are going to decide how much you're going to pay for a click on Google Ads. Primarily making this video for you guys already considering it. You were making a search on YouTube for this, about this bidding strategy. What should you use it? I'm going to go through the pros and cons of using it. I mean, there's definitely, I understand why you want to use it. Then I'm going to explain what might be for you, and I feel already is a little bit better of an option in general, and what I would normally do, given I managed 300 to 500 different campaigns. Tried all the different bidding strategies, know what the pros and cons of all of them are, and ultimately get done what you want done with it. If your goal is to make more money, okay, not just show up at the top of Google, target impression share bidding may be easier to do, but is not going to make you the most money on set amount of money invested into the platform on Google or into ads on Google or clicks on Google. And I'm going to explain why. So anyway, with that said, I'll get into a quick overview here and then I'll explain what are the pros and cons and what is, more importantly, is your alternative that will make you more money if that's the direction you truly want to go. It takes a little bit more work, but a lot more money will be made. Like twice or three times as much money. Okay? If you're already not making money, of course, and people think it's easier than it's going to be when you start out ads with Google. They think they're going to spend 15 minutes setting it up and it's going to be profitable when the other people that are there on Google have been doing it for years. Most of the time, it's not that simple. If you're the first one in your market doing it, maybe. There's, most of the time there's 10 people fighting for those, top 4 ad spots on Google, and you need to be able to do better than them. And doing the least amount of work rarely is going to be able to make sure that you're doing better than them, so to say. So anyway, get into it. There are bidding options. There are other bidding options besides target impression share that can get you more ROI and profit from a set amount of budget on Google Ads that you have. So in other words, your budget, you're going into wanting to spend $3,000 a month on this Google Ads campaign. In terms of you having to choose a bid strategy, target impression share isn't the one that's going to make you the most money in terms of the total amount of profit, and of course at the same time the return on investment ratio of sales to ad spend you're going to get. I'll explain why. The main reason is the top spot on Google, meaning the number one spot. If there's 4 ads on the top of Google, that first spot there is not worth it to spend on except in certain situations. People seem to have known this, back in the day more so when they told you what your ad rank. It used to be in Google Ads, they'd tell you if you were ranking 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, but it used to be the top. There used to be 3 ad spots, but it would tell you if you were 1, 2, or 3 on average. So you could decide if you want to spend more and be closer to 1 and get more clicks, because you will get a higher click-through rate at 1 and more piece of the pie at 1 than you would at 2. But people used to know that, well, a lot of people in the marketing space at least knew that the ad space on 2, 3 gets a better conversion rate than 1 does. So you'll get more clicks on number 1. The conversion rate's not the same as 2 and 3. And that mainly is attributed to somebody who clicks on 1, as a whole, they're not as invested into the process. They don't care what they click on more to say. And they always just click on the first thing and not rating things. I don't have scientific proof of that, but logically that's what makes sense when we're talking about why number 1 wouldn't convert the best. But so when you talk about number 1, with what I said before being the most expensive, still to this day, you have the higher up in that list you are, the more you're going to have to spend to get there, because Google has it. They allow you to spend more to get more clicks and therefore through being higher up in the ad there's 4 ads there on Google. You spend more, you can get more of the clicks and be number 1 if you want. But you're going to be spending more for a click to be there on number 1, and it's going to convert less. So you're getting, hit 2 ways there. You're spending more for worse traffic by being number 1, even though you will get more traffic. So there is situations where you might want to do that, which I'll talk about, but you got to keep that in mind. Most of the people who are using target impression share, which is probably your case as well, is they just want their stuff to show up at the top of Google, period, end of story. Okay? That may be because they don't want to put a lot of work in, but in general, or you may just want your market to be seen normally at the top, and that's your only main, well, not only, but your primary goal. I get clients all the time that come to me, the newbie clients that don't have a lot of experience with what they're doing, or just really haven't invested much into the process. They're making so much money, even if their ads lose money, they don't care because they're making so much money elsewhere. They really don't scrutinize what they're doing too much. And I'll approach them. I'll say, your ads are not set up the best. I offer a guaranteed service where if I can double the amount of response from your ads up front, would you be willing to work with me on a paid basis after that? Because that's my general pitch here at Guaranteed PPC. We get into a talk about how they just want their ads to show up at the top, and I have to kind of, I'm trying to get across to them, like, being at the top of Google, this isn't like an offer on type game. They think basically either you're on the top of Google and you're there and you're done, or you're not. And that's as far as from the truth as you could possibly get. So, respectively, you obviously, despite the fact that you can change the ad and you can change the landing page, and that'll dictate greatly how much money you're making, to show up truly at the top of Google for all the possible keywords in your market, that's going to cost a crap load of money in all situations. So let's just say, for every user on every device, in every state or whatever in your territory. And the reality is, a lot of different situations, those people just aren't profitable. We'll say 2/3 of them aren't profitable. So you got to actually, to make a profit, most of the time, you got to figure out where that 1/3 of it is, and then you got to focus on that. And nobody is a genius as it comes to this stuff. Even like what I'm doing with our clients here, I can kind of know from past experience where that 1/3 is, setting up a campaign. But most of it's done just setting up good tracking. You can track literally anything that you need to track in terms of sales tracking, or if somebody calls or fills out a contact form, what you consider as a lead, or you could track things all the way to a sale if you want. You could track, and I don't care what market you're in. Yes, it is possible. If you don't understand, just let me know and I'll explain how or why. But you let the data show you, whether it's a mobile device you want to focus on, or a desktop device, or is it male or female, or is it or is it one age demographic versus another, based upon how many sales you got from each one of those individual sub-levels that Google lets you, basically scrutinize and spend more or less for, or none at all, to find, and ultimately tells you where that 1/3 is. So, just showing up at the top for everything, you're probably going to lose money, because you're spending 2/3 of your money just to make sure you can show up for the 1/3 that's actually profitable. But when all the dust settles, you're making the ads after delivering your product or service, and those costs, you're working for free. You're actually spending money to deliver your product or service at that point. And a lot of people just don't know that because they don't understand the concept of tracking, or don't want to do it or whatever, and they don't understand that they're really losing money, because I think if they did, that they would maybe do something different. But also part of it is, considered ignorance, in that they just don't understand about the tracking stuff in general, and they just think the game is show up there at the top, and if I do, then I'll look like a player in my market, and then that's all I got to do. That's great if you can afford to lose money just to seem like a player in your market, but you don't have to lose money. Nobody does. There's plenty of information on this channel to explain how to actually have your ads and landing page that you take people to better than your competition, which means you'll make money every time, because Google charges what they can charge so that the top 20% or so will make good money, and that's how it's priced. And so if you can do a better job getting the person from search to what they wanted better than all the rest of your competition that's now advertising on Google, you'll get more out of the clicks than the other people are getting. And given that it's priced to where, you know, basically some people will always be making money towards the top anyway, now you're making more money than them, it'll be profitable for sure for you too. And you could show up at the top of Google a lot and still make money. So there's no reason to compromise and only just show up at the top. You can show up at the top and make money. Respectively though, tying everything together, you won't show up at the top of Google where it's not possible to make a profit, so you wouldn't show up at the top there, but you have to ask yourself, why would I want to lose money just so I could show up for people which they're not going to buy anyway? What's the purpose in that? Obviously you can look credible, but to the wrong people anyway. So there is no point to doing that. And so no matter how you slice it, you should be considering what it takes to make money in terms of what do you need for a cost per sale or cost per lead. Set up your tracking and advertise. Go ahead and advertise everywhere in your market so you're at the top of Google, but figure out what part's worth it and what's not. Okay? There's a kind of a third situation where people are going to use this target impression share bidding option, and that is because depending on the season that you're in, there's different people that come in and advertise more so than other times. Like for instance, if you're in the home services business category, there'll be most of the sales are in the springtime. So what you'll have is you'll have new guys come in that aren't there the rest of the year, which drives up the cost per click. And if you are spending the same amount per click, or if you were on a manual bidding strategy, suddenly you're no longer at the top of Google anymore, and you're pushed out by these new people that are normally not there the rest of the year. Or should I say, you got people that are there know that, you know, the return is normally better from their ads in general during the springtime, so they want to slam it more. And suddenly what it took to be up there at the top of Google in February isn't what it takes to be there in March. And people will have a lot of time to manage their campaigns, so they'll use target impression share bidding so that when the market dictates that they have to spend more to still be at the top of Google, because they kind of want to be there all the time, given that during the primary buying season it's more expensive, yet it's still profitable because the conversion rate on the clicks is higher also to match the rise in what it costs to get a click. Then they just want Google to take care of it, and during those peak seasons they'll have their ad bid up the amount automatically that it takes to stay at the top of Google. Okay, so that's another reason why people use it. So you may be shaking your head already or whatever, but still, this, while I will admit is easy, and if your goal is to get to the top of Google, you're in a small market basically. If you are in a small market, there's only so many customers. You know, you have to pretty much be at the top of Google anyway. This could be one way to do it, but again, you're going to make more money from the same ad space in general if you go a different bidding option and put a little bit more work in than doing that. Okay, it could be if you put it in zero optimization on your account, top of bidding strategy might be okay, might keep you up top there, assuming you're in a market that's fairly profitable, like your average return is like a 1,200% return, and you know there's only so many people searching in your market, and you wish you could get more clicks already and you can't. Top of bidding strategy will make sure that you're there all the time. Most of the people aren't in that situation. They're profitable, but they're not so profitable that they can screw around and do a bunch of stuff and have, you know, the ROI go way down because they're mismanaging. Okay, so a different bidding strategy and a little bit more work put in is worth it for you to do. For you guys that are already so profitable and you just can't get enough clicks, and you've got the 1,500% ROI on your campaigns already, and don't have any time to mess around with your campaigns and don't want to mess around with hiring anybody to help you, top of impression share bidding, fine. You guys, more power to you. For the rest of everybody else that makes money but not an astronomical amount, have to be careful, and they don't want to actually spend too much, otherwise they're going to be working for too little money, whether or selling, having to ship your product out to people for too little money. You actually are conscious to making sure that you have the same return as you had, because you can't afford to lose, half of your return at the end of the day out of what you're doing. Then respectively, you want to use a different bidding strategy. And with that, if you do the different bidding strategy and use the strategy I'm going to give you here, ultimately you'll end up with more profit anyway, for the mere fact that the places where it is super, super profitable, when the 60-year-old male or female from this zip code within your area converts and gets you a 2,000% ROI, whereas the rest of your account, for somebody, let's say that's age 35, and from this zip code gets a 700% ROI, you ultimately, the 60-year-old age category, which you can do within Google Ads, absolutely here, these are real examples. I'm going to want to bid twice as much for those clicks, so I can get basically upwards of 20 clicks by bidding twice as much, because my ROI is normally 2,000% there, which is 3 times the average. So obviously if I bid double and I get twice as many customers there, that's going to lift how much money I can make from my market as a whole. Because going back to what I said before, the more you bid, the higher up you are. So if you have a chance to, you have a group or a part of your campaign that is delivering a 2,000% ROI and you really only need 700% to be profitable, yeah, being number one by bidding more, actually in that case is actually worth it, okay? Or something, you get the general idea along those same lines. Or when I say, higher, it could just be that you are showing up as number 4, typically, and if you bid higher, you'll start to be number 2 and you'll get more clicks, and it'll be a little bit more expensive because you already have a 2,000% ROI there, which is 3 times over your account average. You do want to spend more, and the only way to know and be able to take advantage of that opportunity I just described is to know what the return is from the different parts of your account and actively tell Google you're willing to spend more in those exact groups or parts of your campaign, which you can't do with a top of page bidding strategy. So there are multiple options though with this bidding strategy type, the target impression share bidding strategy type. If you go in to do it, there's an option to do anywhere on page as an option. There's an option to do top of page. There's an option for absolute top of page. And what these are, if you're wondering before when you looked at this, anywhere on page, so technically yes, there's 4 ads on top of Google, but down at the bottom of the page after the organic listings, there's another 3 down there. So really on Google there's 7 listings on the page. So it's no different than it was before, it's just they're in different sections and places on Google search results. So anywhere on page will just make sure you show up in any one of those 7 spots, for sure, guaranteed. They'll raise your bids or lower your bids or whatever they need to do with your bidding to make sure you're on the page every time. Top of page, make sure that you're in the top 4 spots on the top of Google. And recently, Google switched in a lot of search results to where there's only 2 spots. So, with that, by the way, if you've seen that, it's gotten almost twice as expensive to be in those top 2 spots, because now there's only 2 spots, and there's everybody that was there before now needs to bid higher, and so basically it's higher stakes to get those 2 spots. Because if you're down on the bottom of the page, you basically get no clicks. You get like 5-10% of the clicks than if you were on the top of the page as far as your ads are concerned. So respectively, if you're on top of page, it'll be whether it's a 2 or a 4, and when it's 2, usually there's shopping ads directly above it, as I've noticed. But whether it's 2 or 4, top of page, as far as if you're using top of, target impression share bidding, will get you to the top, the way that it sounds. And then absolute top of page is another way of just saying number 1. You use this, it'll guarantee you're in the number 1 spot at the top of the page every single time. Okay? Now, my comments about these, so the anywhere on page, this is pretty much pointless. If you are trying to save money per click, basically, and bid so low that you just want to be on the bottom of the page, you're not going to get hardly any clicks from that. Like I said, it's like 5 to 10% of the clicks you could have got anyway. And you'll save maybe 50 cents per, or the cost per click might be upwards of 50% cheaper. So it is a significant cost reduction per click that you're paying for that keyword that you want to, and search result tied to that keyword you want to show up for. However, if you only get 5% of the clicks, you're basically settling for very little profit. It's better to have a little less margin generally and a lot more volume than a great margin but with tiny volume. But even assuming that you only had it was only profitable if you paid 50% less, there's so many different ways that you can use to increase your conversion rate on your landing page by 50% that settling for 5% of the total clicks of all these searches is just really short-sighted. So I put pointless here, given if you're in that situation, that's why you're doing it or trying to do it, which I can't think of any reason why you would pick this anywhere on page other than that. Spend some money and get your landing page conversion rate up. I've got probably 20 videos on this channel that have different strategies that every time they're used, they'll increase your conversion rate. I'll give you one right now, which is whatever the keyword is that people use to type in that you're bidding on Google, have your landing page say that in the headline, and make a bunch of landing pages so that no matter what keyword they have, the keyword's in the headline pretty much, not exactly if it's a weird sounding keyword or nonsensical how they type it in, but most or as close to the keyword as possible as you can get with it, still making proper sense in English and all that, or whatever language you have that you're operating your campaign in. And therefore with that you have to have an ad group for every keyword, but then when they get to the landing page right away they say, I know right away they know that you do what you say, what they want, and along with that you have the ad in the first headline say the keyword as well. So they see you now made your ad the easiest one to click out of the 4 because you made them think the least. This is what internet marketing is about. Don't make me think. There's a book out there named Don't Make Me Think. It explains this very, very well. If you're trying to get going in online marketing and you haven't read this, I recommend you read it. I did when I first started 15 years ago, and it was perfect. The ad says the keyword, and the landing page headline now says the keyword. Or if you're e-commerce, change also the headline there. It's the same thing. Service or e-commerce works the same way. But just by having the headline changed to have the keyword, you'll get about 40% on average increase in conversion rate, just that one thing. So with that, you'll increase your conversion rate just from doing that, for instance. Now you can afford to be on the top of the page now and get, instead of 5% of the clicks that you could have got, you get all of them. I'm not saying it's 5% click-through, I'm just saying of the possible clicks you could have got up top, you'll get 5% of that basically just being at the bottom of the page because nobody hardly sees it. So you get the idea. Top of the page, I understand why people are doing that. Like I said, for a lot of you guys, you don't have time to manage the campaign very often. Maybe your campaign's too small, you can't afford to hire somebody to manage it because it's too expensive for, at least at the stage you're at right now where you're doing a couple $100,000 in sales a year, whatever. You could use top of page, and then as you're going to the busy season, you're busy, it keeps your ad up at the top of Google. It would be good there. If you're just trying to show up at the top of Google no matter what, just for vanity's sake, I don't, like I said, I encourage you to try to do some tracking and come up with a cost per lead or cost per sale goal, and then only show up there when it's possible to hit that. But I already went through that. As far as the absolute top of page, this one is stupid most of the time, as I mentioned, because the number one spot converts less than the 2 or 3 or 4 even. So, and most of you guys don't have so high of ROI that you can take a 50% hit in the conversion rate and still have the profit margin you want out of the ad spend at the end of the day, which is, it is about 50% difference between the first and like 2 through 4. 2 through 4 is about the same. It's for some reason, I pretty well explained it before, but for whatever reason, 2 through 4 convert better than 1, but as long as you're in 2 through 4, they convert about the same. You can go ahead and you can search this study online. It's been widely talked about before. But, so it's stupid because ultimately, that's not where you get the best return anyway. Yes, you'll get more clicks, and you only want to truly be 1 no matter what, unless you already got like a 2,000% return and you can't get enough clicks, and you'll do anything for one more click. At that point, yeah, maybe that would be good. You could use that, and it would be not totally stupid, in my opinion, to do it. So moving on from there, though, what's a better bidding option that will make you more money than target impression share? Well, I always use enhanced bidding strategy. Okay, so that's actually manual bidding, but when you set up manual bidding, there's a checkbox for enhanced CPC bidding, and what that is it basically lets you manually set the bids for whatever you want, which is what manual bidding is, but you're allowing Google to change your bid in situations where they have determined that the person's X% more likely to convert than your everyday average person who just searched for the keyword with no background information, and get you the conversion, get you higher up, or get you shown more often if they're exhibiting signs that they're more likely to have converted, which they measure every person who searches forever on a database. And they can see certain people that visited this page here later on when they made this keyword search, they converted at 3 times the rate than everybody else who clicked on an ad from this keyword search. In that case, if you have enhanced CPC bidding on, it'll say, I know you bid $2. It's 3 times more likely to convert because they had this prior action, which we know if they have this prior action, on average, they're 3 times more likely to convert. That we raised your bid to $6. You didn't get the conversion, but statistically it said that you were supposed to get the conversion. And if you let us make that decision more often for you, you'll get more sales with the same cost per sale that you had before, if that makes sense. So I use that because I want to use Google's machine learning. They watch not only everything that goes on Google, every ad click, what goes on after the ad click, when they get to the landing page, did they convert, did they go back and click on something else because they weren't satisfied. They also, as a logged in user, they track you since you've started your account. What website you go to, they have Google Chrome, they can see everything you're navigating there. That's the primary browser on the market now. Like 60% of people are using Google Chrome. Google Analytics on every website, basically, almost. And they track all the behavior on different websites that way. So if they couldn't track through Chrome what you're doing, they got you that way. There's all kinds of other Google products. There's Google Apps on your phone, which can then send data from your Android phone to them. They buy data from other people. If they don't have data, they can go to somebody who has a fertility app, buy data from them, and see the email address that you use on that app matches up with their email address, and if so, they know your menstrual cycle now and all this other stuff. So they enhanced CPC leverages all that data. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. So with that though, now you got enhanced CPC bidding. You know why you use that. You raise all your, so you have a campaign, you can launch your campaign. Watch what it spends. You should always go into, when you do PPC, not only should you have tracking set up, and you should work out the math so you know what you're supposed to be able to pay for a sale or a lead to have the profit margin you want after all your expenses, so that when you get into it, you know if it's working or not, so you don't have to freak out later on. But also, you should know what your budget is. Don't just go in and say, I don't know, because you'll find that you're going to have to come up with a budget one way or another, because you don't have unlimited money to spend. So $3,000 a month budget is what most of our clients start out with. So let's say we have a $3,000 a month budget. We start out, we know what we need to get in terms of our tracking, in terms of cost per conversion and cost per sale. We launch our campaign, and we'll just start with a relatively low bid per click. I'll basically keep all of my bids, like $2 a click is about usually what I start out with, no matter what market it is, we'll just say. And that actually, that's not exactly correct. I go and look at what the cost per click says on SpyFu, which I have a SpyFu subscription, and I set the cost per click there, roughly speaking. And then I'll start the campaign, and then I'll let it run for basically a day or two, and I'll see if I spend enough per day already, so that at the end of the month I've spent my $3,000 target budget. If I haven't spent enough per day, I'll raise all the starting bids to a certain percentage, to where I am spending per day what I should spend to spend the full $3,000 a month. Right away, at that same time that I launch, I generally always look and see if there's any keywords that are not eligible to show up on the first page. Next to the keyword, there's a warning. It'll say not on first page, bid too low. I'll raise the bid on just those so that they're eligible to be shown. I'll do that right away. But in general, once I got it worked out about how high the bids need to be on all my keywords, so that I'll spend the budget that I started out wanting to spend, after 90 days, I'll go in and using what is called a bid modification formula. You can Google find that really easily. On each dimension, time of the day, day of the week, device, parental status, income level, or income, how much their income is. And there's others they call different dimensions. I will go into those submenus in Google, and I will adjust the bid up or down based upon how well that individual dimension or part of my account converted. And so basically, if to give you one example, on the device level, the device dimension, if mobile converted 30% less than desktop, then I'll just simply reduce the bid 30% on mobile. Really what it is what you do is you find what you're trying to get as the target cost per conversion, and based upon if you're above or below, you'll adjust your bid up or down based upon what you're shooting for, okay? And what that'll do is constantly take the budget from the part of the account that's not producing the cost per conversion you want and reallocates it to the parts of the account that's producing better than the average cost per conversion that you need. So you're basically optimizing and telling Google, I want to have my ad show up at the top of Google more and higher in general, and so I can get more clicks from it. If this is producing above average results, and just by taking the budget away from parts of the account that's producing less than average results. And ultimately, over time, parts of the account that are doing really bad, you basically will do very little of it. You'll get a trickle of traffic, but most of it will go to the part that's actually converting well. And so with that, once you've got your bids set across the account real well like that, then once you've done the bid adjustment on all the possible dimensions, income level, you can also do time of the day, day of the week by day parting your campaigns, because different days of the week convert differently, different times of the day convert differently. Then you can, once you do that, you'll watch your campaign run for a day or two, and you'll see if you're still spending your daily budget so that you're still spending your $3,000 a month, which was your target monthly budget. If you're overspending, or your campaign say limited by budget, then I will go in and reduce all the bids and all the keywords together a certain percentage, so that the campaigns basically are going to run all day. Because if a campaign says limited by budget, it's just shutting off midday is all that is. So that I'm getting as many clicks as I can for my budget. If I'm not spending my daily budget to reach my $3,000 a month, I'll raise all the bids and all the keywords together, so that ultimately I'll spend my full budget. But certain keywords will naturally have a higher bid and some lower. So as I raise all the bids, I'm doing more aggressively on certain keywords, which will naturally just be higher because that keyword usually does better than another keyword. And naturally on the lower on the keywords that are doing less, they'll still do a little bit higher, but you're ultimately not just going to do everything but more. Well, it is everything more, but you're putting it into perspective so that ultimately you're able to reallocate the budget so that you're still able to spend your total budget, but more specifically, you're getting more from the overall budget doing it that way, versus having a flat bid for everything and you treat everybody the same and you just spend more for everybody like that. So sometimes you'll be at the top of Google at the end of all of this. Sometimes you won't. And the places where it's really worth it to be at the top of Google, you will be at the top of Google. The other places it's not, you won't. And you have to understand and settle for that. Certain places where it's not profitable, you just won't show up there at the top of Google. Ultimately, so that it's not about trying to be at the top of Google anymore. It's how do I be at the top of Google in all the places where it's worth it to be at the top of Google, and that's it. Every 90 days, I'll go back and revisit how the performance of each one of, and I didn't say it explicitly before, but when I adjust my bids, I'm also doing it on a keyword by keyword basis based upon how each keyword converts. And so every 90 days, I'll look at all the keywords again, as well as all the dimensions, time of day, day of week, device, age, gender, parental status, income demographic, and I'll go up or down based upon the last 90 days of performance. And over time, it'll get more and more precise. The bid adjustment you did before, you got more action. Ultimately, you'll get more clicks, you have more data, you have more accurate bid adjustment the second time, that kind of thing. And this in and itself will get you 2 to 3 times more sales for your target budget, or 3,000 ad budget we had in this particular example, than just trying to show up at the top of Google by itself. Because you're now spending most of your money towards the part of the account and the specific types of people searching for your keywords, and certain keywords that are just naturally better producing. So that's what I do instead of target impression share. With that, the downside still though is during like peak season, where it gets to be more expensive to show up at the top of Google, but which convert better, you're going to have to go in and have to adjust all your keyword bids up to account for that. So if I mentioned on other videos that the way that I do it is, if I know every year March through May is our season where we usually have most of our sales, I'll look at what the conversion rate difference is from the rest of the year to those 3 months, and then if it converts better by 40% during that time, I'll set a reminder that every May or every March 1st, I'll raise all the keyword bids by 40% together universally, and then I'll reduce all the keyword bids by 40% once we hit June, basically. So that we're still competitive during the times of the year where ultimately we really want to get out there. But the rest of the year, we're bidding what we can afford to bid ultimately, and still have profit margin in the range of what we need and find acceptable for our business and worth doing what we do to deliver. So anyway, with that said, I will pretty much wrap it up with that. Hopefully that makes sense why and when possibly you still would use target impression share bidding type, and hopefully it helped you. I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns that I used for our clients to guarantee the results. I just wanted to let people know about that in regards to, if you like this channel, I got other great information to help you kind of do other things like I shared in the video to improve your results. Of course, if you haven't seen my other videos on this channel yet or haven't subscribed, you should definitely check those out. I have hundreds of other videos with other specific topics as it has to do with Google Ads, but also just PPC in general, that'll make you into a superstar of PPC and ultimately let you be able to actually make money with PPC if you're struggling with it, or make more, as I cover very advanced, different things that different people aren't using, which when they're used, every time they're used and know from past experience, will get you better results. And if you want better results, it's chock full of different strategies that will work for you to increase your results starting right away. That said, if you have any questions about this type of impression share bidding, if you still want to use it for whatever reason, as I mentioned, some people still might, comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a day or two time. And that said, I hope you did enjoy, hope you learned something, and see you on my next video that comes out in another day or two time with another great strategy on it.